The morning light on Viridian Prime was weaker than yesterday. Zara noticed it as she walked through the crystal gardens that surrounded her home. The tall, glass-like trees that usually glowed bright blue were now dim and pale. Their light came from the star above, just like everything else on her world. Zara was one of the Caliph people. Her skin had tiny lights under it that glowed softly. All her people were like this. They lived on light from their star. They ate light, they breathed light, and their cities ran on pure star energy. For thousands of years, this had been their way of life. But something was very wrong with their star. In the great city of Lumina, the Council of Luminance was meeting. These were the smartest and most important Caliph in their world. They sat in a circle in their tall tower, but today their usual bright glow was weak and worried. Zephyros stood at the center. He was old, even for a Caliph, and had lived for over 300 years. The patterns of light under his skin moved slowly as he spoke. "Our star is dying," he said. His voice was quiet, but everyone heard him clearly. "The science teams have checked and checked again. There is no mistake." Around the circle, other council members flickered with shock. Their lights flashed in ways that showed fear and disbelief. Celeste, who was in charge of the science teams, stood up. She was younger than Zephyros, but her mind was sharp and quick. "The star is losing energy too fast," she explained. "Stars usually live for millions of years. Ours should have lived much longer. But something is making it burn out quickly." "How long do we have?" asked another council member. Celeste's lights dimmed even more. 8 days. Maybe 7. The room became very quiet. Outside the tower, the city of Lumina stretched far in all directions. Millions of Caliph lived there. In the distance, other cities glowed softly across the planet. All of them depended on their star to live. "What about the other worlds?" Zephyros asked, though he already knew the answer would be bad. "The colonies on Stellaris and Lumina Minor are in the same trouble," Celeste replied. "Their stars are connected to ours in ways we never understood. When our star dies, theirs will follow soon after." This meant that not just one world was in danger. 3 worlds full of Caliph people would soon be left in cold, dark space. Far below in the city, normal Caliph were starting to notice the problem too. The street lights were dimmer. The transport systems were running slower. The great energy collectors that powered everything were not getting enough light from above. In the market district, a young Caliph named Jean was trying to buy food for his family. But the food vendors looked worried. The fruits and vegetables that usually glowed with stored star energy were pale and weak. "The plants are not growing right," the vendor told Jean. "They need more light, but there is not enough light to give them." Jean looked up at the sky through the crystal dome above the market. The star that had always been bright and steady now looked smaller and redder than before. Even looking at it made him feel tired. Back in the council chamber, the leaders were trying to find solutions, but nothing seemed possible. Their ships could travel to other star systems, but those ships needed star energy to work. Without enough light, the ships would stop working in space, leaving everyone inside to die. "How many people can we save with the ships we have?" Zephyros asked. The transportation chief did quick math in his head. "Maybe 10,000 people from our world. Perhaps 15,000 if we push the ships beyond safe limits." Zephyros felt his light patterns slow down with sadness. There were 47 million Caliph on their home world alone. The other 2 worlds had millions more people. "We must send out distress signals," he decided. "Call for help from any species that can hear us." "Who would help us?" asked Celeste. "We have kept to ourselves for so long. Other species barely know we exist." It was true. The Caliph had always been proud of their advanced technology and beautiful light cities. They thought they were better than other species, so they had not made friends across the galaxy. Now, when they needed help the most, they realized how alone they really were. The distress signals went out that day, sent toward every corner of known space. The message was simple but desperate. "We are the Caliph. Our star is dying. Our people are dying. Please help us." As night fell on Viridian Prime, the darkness was deeper than anyone had ever seen. Street lights flickered and went out. The great crystal towers that had glowed for centuries now stood dim and cold. Zara sat in her garden, watching her glowing trees fade to almost nothing. Her own light was getting weaker too. She could feel her energy draining away as the star above failed. Somewhere in the dark sky, their messages traveled through space, hoping to find someone who would care enough to help strangers in their darkest hour. Captain Solaris stood on the bridge of his ship, the bright dawn, watching something that broke his heart. In the distance, another Caliph evacuation ship was dying. Its lights flickered once, twice, then went out completely, leaving it dark and cold in space. "That is the fourth ship we have lost today," his navigator Yuna reported. Her voice was weak and tired. The light patterns under her skin were so dim they were hard to see. "The life support systems are failing faster than we thought they would." Solaris closed his eyes for a moment. Each ship that died meant hundreds of his people were gone forever. They had tried so hard to save everyone, but their technology needed star energy to work. Without enough light from their dying star, even their rescue ships were becoming death traps. 3 weeks had passed since the star began its final collapse. In that time, 2 of their colony worlds had already been lost. Stellaris had gone dark first, its star suddenly burning out in just 2 days. The evacuation ships had barely reached half the population before the world froze solid. Lumina Minor was next. The people there had more time to prepare, but it did not help much. Their ships were old and could not carry many people. When their star died, most of the population was still waiting on the planet's surface. Now only their home world of Viridian Prime was left, and it would not last much longer. In the cargo bay of the Bright Dawn, hundreds of Kalith refugees sat close together, trying to share what little energy they had left. The children were the worst to see. Young Kalith were supposed to glow bright like small stars, but these children were nearly transparent. Their bodies were using up their stored energy just to stay alive. An old woman named Hannah held her grandson in her arms. The little boy Miho was only 5 years old. His light had been bright and cheerful just a week ago. Now he was so dim that Hannah could barely see him in the darkness of the ship. "Grandma," Miho whispered, "when will the lights come back on?" Hannah did not know what to tell him. The ship's lights had failed yesterday, and there was no energy left to fix them. She held him tighter and tried to glow a little brighter, sharing her own life energy with him. "Soon, little star," she lied gently. "Soon the lights will come back." In other parts of the galaxy, the Kalith distress signals had reached several different species. The Zentari Empire received the messages and discussed them in their great council halls. They felt sorry for the dying Kalith, but they said moving so many people was impossible. Their ships were built for war, not for rescue. The peaceful Althan Federation also heard the calls for help. They wanted to help, but their technology was different from Kalith technology. Their ships used solid fuel, not light energy. They could not keep Kalith people alive during long space trips. The trading guilds of the Corvex sector did some calculations and decided it would cost too much money to help. They sent polite messages saying they wished the Kalith good luck, but they could not spare any ships. One by one, every advanced species in the galaxy gave similar answers. They were sorry, but helping was too hard, too expensive, or too risky. Back on Viridian Prime, the situation was getting worse every hour. The great city of Lumina was now more dark than light. Whole sections of the city had lost power completely. The crystal towers that had gleamed for thousands of years now stood like dead, gray bones against the sky. Jean walked through the empty streets with his wife, Soyoung, and their 2 children. They were heading to the evacuation center, hoping to get seats on one of the last ships leaving the planet. But they already knew the truth that everyone knew: there were not enough ships for everyone. "Papa," his daughter Nari asked, pulling on his hand, "why is everything so dark?" Jean looked down at his little girl. She was 7 years old and had never seen real darkness before. On Kalith worlds there was always light everywhere, day and night. "Our star is very sick," he explained. "We have to go find a new star to live near." "Will the new star like us?" she asked. "I hope so, little one," Jean said, though he was not sure they would ever find a new star to call home. At the spaceport, thousands of Kalith waited in long lines for ships that might never come. The evacuation ships could only make 1 or 2 more trips before their star died completely. Captain Solaris and the other ship commanders had to choose who would live and who would stay behind. The choices were impossible. Save the children but leave their parents? Save the young and strong but abandon the old and sick? Every decision meant millions would die. As night fell on Viridian Prime for what might be the last time, the darkness was almost complete. The star above was now just a dim red spot in the sky, barely giving any light at all. Their calls for help continued to go out into space, but hope was fading as quickly as their dying star. Deep in space, far from any planet, the human monitoring station called Kepler slowly turned among the stars. Inside the station, only 3 people were working the night shift. Most of the crew was sleeping, but someone always had to watch for signals from space. Communications Officer Na was drinking her 3rd cup of coffee when something strange appeared on her screen. She had been watching the same displays for 4 years, and she had never seen anything like this before. The signal was coming from a star system very far away. But it was not the usual type of message that ships sent to each other. This was different. It was full of mathematics and repeating patterns that seemed to be asking for help. Na called her supervisor over. Chief Tay was an older man who had been working in space communications for 20 years. He knew almost every type of signal that different species used. "Chief, you need to look at this," Na said, pointing at her screen. "I cannot figure out what this is, but it looks important." Tay studied the patterns carefully. His face became serious as he read the translation that the computer was trying to make. The words were unclear, but the meaning was frightening. "This is a distress signal," he said quietly. "A really big one. Get me a direct line to Earth Fleet Command right now." 3 days later, the human starship Endurance dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of an unknown star system. Captain Juan stood on the bridge, looking at something he had never seen before. In front of them was a star that was clearly dying, and around it were dozens of strange ships that looked like they were made of crystal and light. "Sir," reported Science Officer Min from her station, "I am reading massive life signs on those ships. Thousands of beings on each one. But their power levels are very low and getting weaker." Captain Juan was a careful man who always thought before acting. But he was also the kind of person who could not ignore others in trouble. "Can we communicate with them?" "I am trying, sir," said Communications Officer Ryu. "Their technology is very different from ours, but I think I can use basic math to talk to them." The first message from the Endurance was simple, a series of numbers that showed they were intelligent and peaceful. The response came back quickly and it was full of surprise and confusion. Min worked hard to translate the alien message. "Sir, they are asking who we are and why we came here. They seem shocked that anyone answered their distress calls." Captain Juan activated the communication system himself. "Tell them we received their call for help. Tell them we came here to help them." A few minutes later the response came back. Min read it aloud and her voice showed her own surprise. "Sir, they are asking why we would help strangers. They say we are an unknown species with small ships. They want to know what we want in return." Juan almost smiled. In all his years in space he had met many different types of beings. Some were friendly, some were dangerous, and some just wanted to be left alone. But he had never met anyone who was surprised that someone would offer help. "Tell them we want nothing in return," he said. "Tell them that helping people in trouble is what humans do." On the bridge of the Caliph ship Bright Dawn, Captain Solaris stared at the translation of the human message. Around him, his crew members looked just as confused as he felt. "They want nothing?" asked Navigator Yuna. "No payment? No trade agreements? No territory rights?" "That is what they said," Solaris replied. He had dealt with other species before and they always wanted something. The few times the Caliph had contacted other civilizations, it had always been about trade or territory borders. "Sir," his science officer reported, "I am scanning their ship. It is much smaller than ours and their technology is very different. They use solid materials and chemical reactions for power instead of star energy. But their ship seems strong and well made." Solaris made a decision that would change everything. "Send them our location data and tell them about our situation. If they really want to help, they need to know how bad things are." The message that went back to the Endurance was long and detailed. It explained how their star was dying, how many people needed to be saved, and how their technology was failing without enough star energy. It was a desperate message from a proud people who had never asked anyone for help before. When Captain Juan finished reading the translation, he was quiet for a long moment. His crew waited to see what he would decide. The problem was enormous. Millions of beings needed to be saved, and they only had days to do it. "Contact Earth Fleet Command," Juan finally said. "Tell them we need every available ship. We have a civilization to save." Officer Ryu looked surprised. "Sir, should we not check with command first before making promises?" Juan looked out at the dying star and the desperate ships around it. "No," he said firmly. "Some things are too important to wait for permission. Send the message to the Caliph, help is coming." 10 days later, something incredible happened in the dying Caliph star system. Ships began arriving from hyperspace one after another. But these were not Caliph ships or any other species the galaxy knew well. These were human ships and they kept coming. Captain Solaris watched from his bridge as the human fleet grew larger and larger. First came military ships like the Endurance. Then came huge cargo vessels carrying building materials. After that came colony ships, transport ships, and even civilian ships that had been converted to carry supplies. "How many ships do they have?" asked Navigator Yuna, staring at the display screen. "I count over 200 so far," replied the science officer. "And more are still arriving." The humans had done something that no other species had ever attempted. When they heard about the Caliph crisis, They had not just sent a few ships to help with evacuation. They had mobilized their entire fleet for a rescue mission. On the Endurance, Captain Juan was meeting with the human fleet commanders and Caliph leaders. The meeting room was crowded with both species trying to understand each other. Lieutenant Zephyros, the oldest of the Caliph Council, spoke for his people. Captain Juan, we are grateful that you came. But I do not see how even your large fleet can save 47 million beings. Our ships are failing and there is nowhere to take so many people. Chief Engineer 1, a small woman with quick hands and bright eyes, looked up from her tablet computer. She had been studying Caliph technology for days, learning how their light-based systems worked. We are not just here to evacuate you, one said calmly. We are here to relocate you. All of you. The Caliph leaders looked confused. Relocate? Asked Zephyros. What do you mean? One activated a holographic display that showed a star system 3 sectors away. This system has a young, stable star that will live for billions of years. We are going to build you new homes there. Build homes? Celeste, the Caliph science leader, shook her head. You cannot build cities in space fast enough. Our people will die before you finish. Not cities on planets, one explained, her excitement growing. Cities in space. Orbital habitats that can house millions of people each. We have the industrial equipment to build them, and you have the energy technology to power them. The humans had brought something the galaxy had never seen before. Massive construction ships that could build entire structures in space. These ships carried automated factories, metal refiners, and assembly robots that could work around the clock. But the human plan needed Caliph help to work. The humans could build the structures, but only the Caliph understood how to make technology that could capture and use star energy efficiently. You want us to work together? Asked Zephyros. Combine our technologies? It is the only way, Captain Juan said. We can provide the materials and construction power. You can provide the energy systems and knowledge of how your people need to live. Together we can create something neither of us could build alone. The work began immediately. Human construction ships moved to the new star system and started building the framework of enormous orbital stations. Each station would be as large as a city and would house millions of Caliph people. At the same time, Caliph engineers worked with human scientists to design new energy systems. The Caliph technology was based on capturing pure starlight, while human technology used solid materials and chemical reactions. Combining them created power systems that were more efficient than either species had ever built before. Jean and his family were among the first groups of refugees to be transferred to the new system. As their human transport ship approached the construction site, Jean looked out the window and could not believe what he saw. The orbital habitat was already taking shape. Human construction robots worked alongside Caliph energy specialists, installing the crystal panels that would capture starlight and the bioluminescent gardens where Caliph families would live. It is beautiful, whispered his wife Soyoung. Their children, Nari and Miho, pressed their faces against the window, watching the construction in amazement. The human and Caliph work teams discovered that they had more in common than anyone expected. Both species valued family, both loved learning new things, and both believed in helping others. Engineer 1 worked closely with a young Caliph scientist named Day. At first, they could barely communicate, but as they worked together on the energy systems, they developed a friendship that crossed species lines. Your people are amazing, Day told 1 through their translation device. You came all this way to help strangers. Why? 1 looked up from the energy converter they were building together. Because you needed help, she said simply. And because now you are not strangers anymore. You are friends. The construction continued day and night. Human ships made constant runs between the dying system and the new one, carrying refugees and supplies. The orbital habitats grew larger and more complex as human engineering combined with Caliph artistry. With only 2 days left before the Caliph star died completely, the first habitat was ready for full population. The last transport ship left the dying Caliph system just as their ancient star collapsed into darkness. Captain Solaris stood on the bridge of the bright dawn, watching his home star disappear forever. Behind him, the final group of Caliph refugees looked back at what had once been their world. But they were not looking with sadness anymore. They were looking with hope. 3 months had passed since the humans first arrived, and the impossible had become real. The orbital cities around New Viridian were not just built, they were thriving. The combination of human engineering and Caliph energy mastery had created something more beautiful than either species had ever imagined. Young Miho, the little boy who had been so dim and weak on the refugee ship, now glowed brightly as he played in the central park of New Viridian Prime Station. The artificial star that the humans had built was gentle and steady, providing exactly the right kind of light for Caliph children to grow strong and healthy. His grandmother Hannah sat on a bench nearby, watching him play with both human and Caliph children. The two species had become friends so quickly that it amazed her. The human children were fascinated by the way Caliph people glowed, and the Caliph children loved learning about human games and stories. "Grandma," Miho called as he ran over to her, "look how bright I am now." Hannah smiled as her grandson's skin pulsed with happy blue and green lights. "You are the brightest star in the galaxy, little one," she told him. Captain Juan walked through the main plaza of the station with luminant Zephyros. The old Caliph leader had asked to speak with him privately, and they had been walking and talking for over an hour. "In our oldest stories," Zephyros said, "we have legends about beings called the Lightbringers. They were supposed to appear in our darkest time and help us find new stars to live near. I always thought they were just stories." Juan looked around at the bustling plaza where humans and Caliph worked together, shopped together and lived together in peace. "Maybe they were not just stories," he said. "Maybe they were promises." The partnership between the two species had changed both of them in wonderful ways. The Caliph had shared their advanced energy technology with humans, helping them build cleaner and more powerful systems for their own worlds. Human cities now used Caliph crystal technology to capture solar energy more efficiently than ever before. In return, human adaptability and determination had given the Caliph something they had never had before: the knowledge that they were not alone in the galaxy. For thousands of years, the Caliph had kept to themselves, thinking they were better than other species. Now they understood that working together made everyone stronger. Engineer 1 and her Caliph partner Day had become the leaders of a new research team that included both species. They were developing technology that could help other civilizations if they ever faced similar disasters. "We should teach this to everyone," Day said as they worked on their latest project. "What we learned here, that different species can work together to solve any problem." One nodded as she adjusted a crystal energy converter. "The galaxy is full of species that have never really talked to each other. Maybe it is time for that to change." News of the Great Rescue had spread throughout known space. Other civilizations watched in amazement as the humans asked for nothing in return for saving an entire species. No territory, no payment, no trade agreements, they had simply helped because help was needed. The Zentari Empire, which had refused to help during the crisis, sent ambassadors to study what the humans had done. The Althan Federation began planning similar orbital cities for their own growing population. Even the greedy trading guilds of the Korvek sector started wondering if helping others might actually be good for business. On the anniversary of their arrival at New Viridian, the Caliph Council decided to build a monument. It stood in the center of their new capital, a tall crystal spire that glowed with both human and Caliph technology. The words on the monument were written in both languages. "When we were lost in the dark, humanity stood beside us, not as conquerors but as friends. In our darkest hour they brought us light. In our greatest need they brought us hope." But the story did not end with the monument. Human and Caliph ships now patrolled space together, searching for other species that might need help. They had learned that the galaxy was full of civilizations facing their own problems, and together they could help solve them. Captain Juan and Captain Solaris commanded one of these joint patrol fleets. Their ships traveled from system to system, carrying supplies, sharing knowledge, and offering friendship to anyone who needed it. "You know," Solaris said during one of their regular meetings, "before this happened, I thought the galaxy was a cold, dark place where everyone only cared about themselves." Juan smiled as he looked at the mixed crew of humans and Caliph working together on the bridge. "It turns out the galaxy is only as cold and dark as we make it. When we choose to help each other, it becomes bright and warm." And throughout the galaxy that light continued to spread.